I'm Michael Jones, Michaeljones.
Good morning, Officer Jones. How are you?
Sergeant, I'm fine.
And thank you for saying that. Where are you a sergeant currently?
I'm assigned to Zone 5, our field investigations team.
With the Atlanta Police Department?
Correct.
All right. How long have you been sergeant?
It'll be 3 years in December.
And how long have you been with APD?
Total of 12 years.
February the 13th of 2015, were you working with Atlanta Police Department at that time?
Yes.
What was your position?
I was a police officer assigned to Zone 3 Morning Watch.
All right. As a police officer assigned to Zone 3 Morning Watch, what hours did you work?
10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
All right. And on the morning of February the 13th, around 3:56, were you on duty?
Yes.
All right. At that time, did you have an occasion to respond to the area of 193 Hendricks Avenue?
Yes.
And what was the reason that you responded?
I responded on behalf of my then Lieutenant Bruce, in reference to shell casings being on the ground near the location.
All right. Now, preceding that shell casings call that you got from Lieutenant Bruce, had there been another call at 193 Hendricks?
I'm not familiar with that, but I believe so.
All right. And when you got to 193 Hendricks, tell the jury what you observed.
Based on my report, because it was quite some time ago, I was able to recover 17 what was identified as 5.56 shell casings and 6 9mm shell casings.
Did you have an occasion, without telling what anyone said, did you have an occasion to speak to any persons on scene?
No, ma'am.
Did you observe any persons on scene?
No, ma'am.
All right. And once you collected those 17 5.56 shell casings and the 6 9mm shell casings, tell the jury how you preserved or collected them.
Once shell casings are collected, they are then turned into our property, which is our annex building.
I should be more specific. When they're collected, are they collected individually and put in a bowl and given to property, or do you do something different with them?
From my knowledge, if I'm doing the collection, we collect them individually or all together, or we contact our crime scene technicians and they come out and collect them.
And in this particular instance, was it you or a crime scene technician that collected the shell casings?
Based on my report, it looks like that I was the one that collected them.
All right. Now, when you collect them, do you put them in yellow envelopes and put anything on the envelopes, or do you something different? Do you do something different?
Normal procedure. That is the procedure. You collect them individually, one shell casing at a time. I don't remember exactly how these particular shell cases were collected, but I believe that I still follow the same procedures that I do with collecting shell cases individually.
And does your procedure involve writing on the individual packet that the shell casing is in the location that you collected them from?
Yes, ma'am.
And does it involve putting your name on the front of the package?
I can't recall if I had to put my name on them or not. I'm being honest, I can't recall.
What time was the call that preceded your call? Was it earlier in the day, in the night, a few hours before, a few moments before you went out? Do you know?
Prior to this particular call?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you record in your report anything about that location that aided you in knowing what to look for? And if you need to refer to your report, just say, I need to refresh my recollection. Read it to yourself and then let the jury know.
Okay.
And are you reading to refresh your memory right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, in the report, I mentioned that there have been previously recent gang-related shootings that are...
You remember what I said about reading the report to yourself?
Gotcha.
Refreshing your memory?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is your memory refreshed?
Correct.
All right. So had there been shootings prior to the time that you responded at this location?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And had there been a vehicle found with bullet holes at this location?
Sustained.
Had there been anything else found?
Not that I recall.
Was there any vehicles found prior to your getting here that would have aided you in your investigation?
Based on my report, no, ma'am.
All right. Do you know whether or not there were any, and when you say based on your report, if you would look at line, I'm going to approach you. Mm-hmm. with your report 150410718? Without reading to the jury.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Now, am I holding the same report that
Yes, ma'am.
you're holding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, other than the gang-related shootings, had there been anything else found that you utilized to aid you in your investigation?
Yes, a vehicle was located with bullet holes.
With what?
A vehicle with bullet holes.
Okay. Now, was there anybody home at the time of the 911 call that preceded yours
No,
based
ma'am.
on your investigation?
No, ma'am.
And was there anyone home at the time you arrived?
No, ma'am.
All right. At the time of the 911 call that preceded yours, do you know, based on your investigation, and were you able to learn in order to further your investigation, whether any shell casings were recovered at the time of the 911 call that preceded your arrival?
Objection to the extent that it calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Do you know, based on your investigation and to the extent that it aided you in your investigation, whether there were any shell casings located during the response to the 911 call that preceded your arrival? Do you understand the question?
You say it proceeded after or before?
The 911 call that preceded, that went before.
So, try a different question.
Yes.
Confusing anyway.
Do you know whether or not anybody before you found any shell casings at that location as it related to the call Sergeant Bruce brought you back out on?
And I would object because that calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Were you aware of any other evidence besides the car riddled with bullet holes and the gang-related shootings regarding 193 Hendricks Avenue? Were you aware of anything else that helped you in your investigation?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And at the time that you went to that location, did you know whose home that was?
No, ma'am.
Did you know whose relatives those were?
No, ma'am.
Okay. The shell casings that you collected, 5.56 shell casings. Describe those type of shell casings to the jury.
They're longer than the average pistol shell casings.
Like this
skinnier.
long? This long.
I would say the second.
Could you hold it
about
up?
this
'Cause I
long?
can't do
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, about this long.
Okay. And you said they're longer than the what?
They're longer than the average pistol shell casings.
All right. And relatively speaking, the other type, the 9mm type, those are just regular small shell casings?
Yes, ma'am. Those are smaller.
The 5.56 shell casings, do you know what type of gun, based on your training and experience with the Atlanta Police Department, fires that type of ammunition?
Normally AR-15 rifle style firearm.
And did you, at the time you responded to the scene, observe or did you even go to the property to see whether there were bullet holes at the address you were responding to?
No, ma'am, I don't remember.
Was your only role at the scene to go and collect the shell casings that had been found?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, when you arrived at 193 Hendricks, do you remember what that area looked like? Was there an alleyway near it?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you note in your report an alleyway leading up towards 193 Hendricks?
Yes, ma'am.
And where in relation to that alleyway were the shell casings found?
I will have to refer back to my report.
Would you read it, refresh your memory, and look up after your memory has been refreshed? Is your memory refreshed?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So where in relation to that alleyway were the shell casings found?
Actually, in the alleyway.
All right. And do you recall how close to the location those shell casings were?
No, ma'am, I do not recall.
Do you have any personal knowledge or personal relationship with a man named Kenneth Copeland?
No.
All right. And do you have any personal relationship with or knowledge of any member of his family?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. That's all that I have.
Any questions by the defense for this witness? Anybody? Nope. All right. Thank you for your time. Call your next witness.